Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you are tuning in. Welcome to another NAUMD webinar in our 2021 webinar series. We're actually finishing off the year with 3 short webinar talks with BodiData in the sizing technology space, hugely important tech to solve many uniform issues that are coming up lately, and especially during the pandemic, but I will leave that to Tak and Harvey to discuss. The NAUMD is a network of uniform companies across many countries. We have services in the uniform news space. We have services in industry data. And most importantly, we provide network access among all of our members who do business with each other, share best practices like we're doing today. We have an annual in-person show. This year it is in May 22nd to 24, meaning next year, not this year, 2022. So please go to naumd.com and to learn more, and sign up for other events that we're hosting and providing services for. And with that, I am going to keep quiet here and turn it over to Harvey and Tak, who are going to talk about sizing tech.
Thank you, Rick, and thanks for having us on. We are about to have or embark on a 3-part webinar for our viewers. Today, we're mostly talking about measuring accurately, match skillfully, and the third one will be manage customers' expectations. So to start off, I'd like to ask Tok Yuong to give us a little background both of himself and of BodiData.
Sure. Thanks, Harvey, and welcome everybody. About myself, well, I'm a technologist working in Silicon Valley, probably close to 40 years after graduating from Berkeley with computer science. So I would say I'm a CEO that came through the technology side of the house versus more traditional sales and marketing and finance of the house. Probably my background, what's unique is I've done the full spectrum of startup to Fortune 100 company. I've worked at a number of startups that were successful, including a couple that I co-founded and were eventually acquired by Yahoo. But I've also worked at Fortune 100 company and big tech companies like Oracle, Microsoft, and Yahoo, where I was the senior VP, the executive in charge of the Yahoo search division worldwide before we sold it off to Microsoft. In terms of BodiData, when my co-founder and I, Bruce Terry, my co-founder and I, founded BodiData back in early 2017, our goal was not necessarily the best 3D body scanning technology. Our goal was actually in apparel to have happy and satisfied end wear customers by really matching the different body shapes and dimension to ready to wear clothing size. And we figure if you have happy and satisfied end wear customers, you reduce returns. And we recognized when we started the company that accurate body measurement is a necessary ingredient, absolutely. But we also recognize that it's not sufficient enough to reduce returns. So our mission became measure, match, and manage. And by that, I mean, we want to measure the body accurately, but we also want to match skillfully the diversified set of body shapes that's in the human race to ready-to-wear sizes of ready-to-wear clothing, right? And I don't mean custom clothing, I mean ready-to-wear clothing, which has a limited set of sizes for any one style. And you have to match all those body shape to it. And then we want to manage the wearer's expectation because there's a tendency in the wearer's mind that when you're using technology, they think they're going to get a custom fit, but they're not. We're matching them against sizes of ready-to-wear clothing, right? So not only do we recommend the size, we want to be able to also tell them that size will fit different parts of their body differently. So for example, a shirt size may fit the chest perfectly, but it may be loose on the waist. Or a pant may fit the thigh and hip perfectly, but it might be a little loose on the waist, as an example. And so that manages their expectation because if for example, a lady wears a pant that she get recommended size 4 and she puts it on, and there's a little gap in the back of the waist, she thinks, oh, this is too big. I'll return it and get a smaller size 2. But we know from the tech pack, from the grading and so on, that a size 2 actually with her body shape won't fit over her hip. So that's the kind of feedback we want to be able to manage the expectation and feedback. That's our goal. That was the background of our company.
Thanks. That's a great answer. Let's talk about a little bit about the evolution of the body measuring technology as we are beginning to see it today. I mean, I was back in '91 where I needed a tractor trailer truck to move a body measuring device in. So why don't you explain to us how things have changed over the last 30 years?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Body measuring or scanning techniques started quite a while back, but I probably won't discuss the early development of it. I'll talk more about, focus more on the modern day, which is, let's say, the last 12 years or so, where body measurement are generally done using 3D body scanners. And then in recent years, you know, there used to be 3D body scanners that are booth side, like you said, you need a truck to haul it in or install it. But now 3D body scanning are more handheld devices, or using your phone or iPad, tablet. Most modern 3D body scanners are, I would say, light sensitive devices that uses optical techniques for capturing the body dimension of the human body. But because of the optical techniques, the scanned subject are required to wear and change into tight form fitting clothing, because an optical sensor won't see through the clothing, right? This is true whether the solution is using an optical camera found in any of the smartphone, or even an optical depth sensor like LiDAR found in high-end iPhones and iPad. That's valid. If you're using an optical system only, you will need the subject to wear tight form fitting clothing, right? The only exception to this is the BodiData offers a handheld Quora scanner, which uses both optical depth sensor and millimeter wave radar sensor. The millimeter wave radar sensor sends radar which penetrates the clothing and bounces off the water molecule off the surface of your skin. This is the same and safe radar sensor that's employed at airports around the US with the TSA machine, right? So the Quora scanner is actually capable of scanning an individual fully clothed in normal streetwear, like what you're wearing, like what I'm wearing. Okay, so that's another method. Another method that are being used in modern days also, which also BodiData offers as well, which is a technique of using a large big data set to predict a large number of required body measurements from a few input body measurements that are self-measured by the subject. So this method doesn't require any hardware device or sensor at all, other than a tape measure, right? So for me, nowadays in the apparel industry, that constitutes sort of the 4 main type employed in body measurement that you're seeing.
So having been around a bit, there's a big difference between what I know as 2D and as 3D. So can you give us a little more in-depth explanation of the two formats?
Sure. See how best to. Well, okay. So the real world we live in is 3-dimensional, right? The human body is 3-dimensional that you're trying to capture and extract measurement from. So it makes sense that solution that capture the real body in 3D has advantages in terms of accuracy and so on over a solution that uses 2D technology, right? And I think the apparel industry, this is true in design as well. Most systems that were designed in the old days were 2D, and they're trying to move to 3D design, because the real world we live in, the body you're trying to put the clothing on is 3D. Now, if you're trying to capture the 3D body shape using 2D, say like 2 photos, then inherently there is information that you cannot capture, and you must try to estimate for in different ways. So for example, a photo sees the body in 2D, 2 axes, the width and the length, the X and the Y, right? What it does not see is the 3rd dimension, which is the depth. So in terms of the length of the leg or the width across the back, a photo can actually capture that more easily. what it has difficulty capturing and it can't capture, and you have to try to estimate and figure it out, is the depth on the body will be more difficult, right? Like the chest, the circumference of the chest or the waist or the hips or the thigh and so on. So a lot of the 2D photos, including BodiData, we offer 2 photo solution as well, but those would usually take the front side and the side photo of the body. Then using technique, segmentation, human model data set, morphing technique, to try to generate a 3D model of the body from the photo. But there are simply information missing in 2 photos, right? That cannot be captured. So you really have to try to estimate those. So different techniques. So in simpler terms, let me explain. So if you have a side photo of the upper body and you see the front and the back, but you can't tell the curvature, whether the curvature is out this way or the curvature is out this way, because you don't have a depth, the 3rd dimension. So you have to estimate that curvature. And that's why circumferences are more difficult to get. You know, there are other pros and cons. The pros, you know, of 2 photos is that it can be very fast, and it has an advantage of speed and throughput in the number of people that you could actually scan. But even that, I think it's more true if there's an operator operating it, then you can get a lot of throughput to and consistency. So that's what we offer, 2 photo, and we put on a tripod, and from a scanning session, we have people come in and moves very quick. If you try to do it in a self-scan perspective, it actually takes a longer time, because you do the person who is being scanned is operating it as well and has to line up, but it could be done. There are pros and cons for each of these methods.
Well, in the 2 photo, you're actually very much relying on the operator, which is obviously not a skilled person in taking measurements. And you can have, I suspect, a lot of variation and incomplete measurements and pretty much wrong everything, I would think.
If you have a train operator, then yes, you reduce the error prone. But if you have the person themselves do it, or somebody who's not trained, then it could be error prone, yes. And it could take more time, because you would have to redo it when the system detect, okay, this is not working, I'm not able to get what I need, and so on.
So while our applications certainly apply to ready-to-wear and mass marketing and big box operations, BodiData has been focusing a significant amount of their time on uniform and uniform suppliers. Can you give us some thoughts on, you know, the different environments in which maybe the different formats would work? I know BodiData offers all the formats, but, you know, in different environments, you have different requirements. You may have a doorman at a hotel, or a flight attendant, or you may have a trucking company, for example, would have a very different environment. Can you speak to that a bit?
Sure. I think different business strategy and customer preference require different body measurement option that cater to your particular business model and customer preference, right? I think a uniform company should leverage every available alternative in the marketplace, right? That's why we said our goal was to offer all the option in terms of, because I think in different situation requires differently option to do it. So rather than one, we offer all 4, and we know the pros and cons of each. Now, we also do it that it's not I don't think it's a mutually exclusive. These are not mutually exclusive option. It doesn't have to be you pick one over the other. You could actually have any combination of them in a deployment. So let me explain. So for example, one of our customer in Europe does a lot of scanning using 2 photo in a factory design. So they give a lot of instruction for employees to come wearing type form fitting clothing. And then so basically they have actually a mat setup. So they just stand front photo and side photo. So they have a tripod and they're basically clicking. So they get a lot of throughput. But they realize over time that, you know, no matter how many instruction they give, some people show up without type forming clothing, right? So we're trying to talk to them now that actually let's use it in combination, use the 2 photo, But if you spot somebody who came without type form fitting clothing, this is not going to work. Pull them aside and use the handheld Cora scanner and scan them with capable of doing the street clothes. So it depends on your option. So your customer and wearer may also be somebody who's adverse to technology or don't want their photo taken or scanned. Even though we say we destroy the photo after processing, they don't want it. So then for that particular case, the self-measure model is great because they can just, you can have video training them how to self-measure the chest, the waist, the hip, several measurements, so about 4 or 5. And then you can use the large big data and predict the rest of the measurement to give them the recommendation they need. So it depends on the situation. And like I said, the best is to have all the available alternative and then use them in combination that makes sense. So they need to work together. So for example, you could get scanned initially with the Cora scanner because you happen to walk into a uniform company that has a retail location and you get scanned and you get recommended. But 6 months later, your weight may have changed or your body shape changed, right? Like we all know it does for everybody. You can go then do an up of it using the self-measure. So here my chest has changed and my waist has changed. I'll update my body profile with that technique. And then you have a new profile that can get recommendation from that.
Thanks, Doug. Given the current environment that we're in with online almost everything these days, returns has become a very big problem, not only in the uniform industry or specifically in the uniform industry, but in all industries. I'm personally guilty of it myself. I got 2 sweaters in today and I got 2 different sizes, and guess I'm going to keep the one that fits me the best. Why don't you talk about how body data and accurate measurements cuts down on that?
Sure. Well, you hit on the head. So if you look at not just uniform, but if you look at just in general online, right? A lot of people still are not buying clothing online because of size uncertainty, right? Even those who buy online, Amazon has made free return the cost of doing business. So they tend to buy 3 sizes because of size uncertainty. I think this size will fit me, so I'll buy it, but I'll buy one above and one below and try it and then return them because it's not costing me, right? But that's quite expensive for the merchant or for the brand, right? What the ability of what we offer is you can get scanned, create a body profile, and then get size certainty. So hopefully that is reduce the return. Because once you show that it works and you get size certainty and you're able to match it against different uniform style, once you have that body profile, you only need to get scanned once, right? Unless your body change. So that's how it reduces return. It also creates for companies an omni-channel, right? Because the best way to connect the brick and mortar to the online is an understanding of your customer's size and body shape. So they can, in our model, they can go get scanned. They can go in the brick and mortar, get scanned, get recommendation. You can also have, in our style, the QR code attached to the clothing style. You can scan the QR code and get the recommended size so that you don't have to bring 4 or 5 of them into the dressing room to try them on. You can get the recommended. But when you go home and you go online where there are more choices of style and so on, you can also get the recommended size with size certainty by giving your body profile ID. We call it body ID.
Excellent. So in the future, hopefully many manufacturers will be able to accept this kind of data, and we'll stop ordering 3 different sizes of clothing.
Yeah, it's quite expensive, right?
Well, and especially now with our current health issues that we're all dealing with, and COVID and whatever version that we're working on it this week, I don't know that I want to put clothing back in stock that's been tried on by someone. I mean, I think that there's a health risk there, personally. The next thing I want to talk about is privacy, right? I mean, we're taking avatars or images of people. So let's talk about, what happens to all this information after we've gathered it.
Sure. I can only speak to how BodiData handles the privacy matter.
Of course.
I don't know the other players out there and how they handle it. But first and foremost, we don't store any of the photo or video of the scanned subject. When we scan, we produce a 3D cloud of the subject, which the 3D cloud in itself is not identifiable, right? That is what we store. We destroy, we don't store the video or the photos that are taken. In fact, our policy is not even to store the subject's body. We use the body measurement or calculator on the fly to give the recommendation on the clothing size. We don't even store those body measurements because we're able to do it in real time on the fly to do the recommendation. Our policy, actually, from a privacy perspective, is that the person being scanned owns the data. So first, from a GDPR compliant and California compliant, if he or she wants her her cloud destroyed and removed, we will do it. That's not a problem. But even the measurement, we don't give to our partner unless that person authorizes us to give it to our partner. All we give is the recommended size. So that's our way of handling the privacy, so they understand they own the measurement. They give us the permission to do it for the recommended size. We don't store the measurement. If they want their measurement, we'll give it to them because it's theirs. If they want to authorize us to give the measurement to their employer or so on, we will do that. But it is there to do.
Well, I think that's great. BodiData is taking the hopefully the lead on what we do with this information, because everybody in today's day and age is concerned about privacy and information that gets passed along. So
yeah, actually, that's important. I'll mention one other thing, how we relate to privacy. Privacy, it goes hand in hand with security, right? Because so the way in which we store just the cloud and the way in which we separate it from the identifiable body ID, if somebody hacks into our system, they actually would have to identify the ID to the particular cloud. And even then, all they have is the cloud. They don't have the measurement because we do it on the fly. And for them to do it, they would have to have our technique of how to do it to extract even. So privacy is one thing, how you protect it, but security is the other thing related to that.
Very important. Thank you. I appreciate that. So the number one big question is everybody wants to know is really, what does this system cost us and how do we save money and what is the ROI? Now, I know that in every situation we have a different answer, obviously, but maybe you can speak to that in a general terms of what kind of cost savings can the suppliers and the uniform manufacturers and dealers expect to achieve?
That's a good question, and you're right. It also depends on their costs. So actually, I would say the first step in answering the ROI cost is that our partner really must capture the total true cost of the way they're currently doing it. So what we have done is actually we've done an analysis with help of some data from a uniform company. We've developed also a template from that our partner can fill in their specific costs, and then we can show the cost of our system, how much it could be saved. And it's important to understand that the cost that it can save is not only in reducing returns and all the associated reverse logistic costs of shipping, admin, remerchandising, including cleaning, those costs, but something to think about is to capture your true cost of what you do with the fit line right now, right? And the associated cost of the fit line you need to do when you're trying to measure and fit people into sizes, right? It's expensive to manufacture and produce the fit line, the clothing costs. You have to talk about the transportation costs of transporting those fit line to multiple locations. You have to think about the space rental costs of renting, whether it's a courier warehouse, which may be cheaper to rent, or if you're doing a bespoke airline uniform. I've seen they rent space at the airport, which is quite expensive, where they store the fit line. And then you have to talk about the cost of all the racks and tables associated with fit line. And then you have to talk about the lodging and meals for staff and so on that you're sending everywhere to hand measure people the way you're doing it. And in our analysis, what we found is depending on your cost of each of those, our cost of using BodiData system is anywhere from 15 to 55% of the cost of the traditional way of doing business. So that could be anywhere from a 45 to 85% cost saving from that perspective. If you can eliminate the fit line, you can reduce return. You can also, even variable costs such as lodging and meals for staff gets reduced because we lower the number of staff that needs it to do versus the traditional way of fit line. And we lower the time it takes to do it. Does that make sense? And we have that in a template.
Well, absolutely. And also you're looking at the inconvenience of the end wearer where they have to then go try on the clothes and change and whatever. And it becomes a chore for the employee as well, or the customer in a traditional retail. We have about 3 minutes left, I see from my clock, 4 minutes. Does anybody out there that's been listening, hopefully there's a bunch, that may have a few questions? We're open to questions for a couple of minutes. Well, Toke, I think that BodiData has done a great job in moving the technology ball forward with their radar system, and the ability to have, I want to call it a smorgasbord of whatever you need. You sign up for BodiData and you get all their technology in one big package. I think that that's just a wonderful ability to make the adapt for any given situation, especially for a uniform company that sells on a national level or on a regional level, where they have walk-ins, may not have walk-ins, have to send salespeople out, not send salespeople out, get customers to do stuff on their own. It gets to be a hodgepodge of information. The other thing that I consider when we measure people is the human error in just recording the information, where now we're not really dealing with the human error as well. I can't tell you how many times in business where someone meant to write down size 34 and they wrote down 43. So those kinds of errors are also quite expensive. So I guess we're going to wrap that up, and until we see you all next week, I'm good. Thank you very much for all that information today.
Thank you, Avi. This is the first of a trilogy. So I talk mostly about measurement, but I highly recommend you watch the next one, which is will be done by Kelsey McDonald, who understands clothing very well and apparel and how it drapes over the body. And that's the matching skillfully of different parts of the body.
Yes, correct. This is a 3-part series, and matching skillfully will be the next segment, to which I just found out today that I'll be asking those questions and monitoring as again. So again, thank you very much.
Harvey and Toke, we did get one question come through as to videos that might show. So in the next week, will you be showing some examples of the technology in action? Or are there videos, someone's asking, that can be found somewhere that
of the different technologies?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll make sure that Kelsey, as part of that, share her screen and show how a video with LiDAR or how a body scan can be done, but and then focus on the matching skillfully using tech packs as opposed to just generic sizing chart and so on as well.
Excellent.
But they can go to our website, BodiData.com.
And where are the videos on the site?
There's video, I think, of the scanner, and then we'll be able to, if they fill out the information, we'll be able to send them all
links to
all
some
the different
other
videos
videos.
that they need.
Okay.
Yeah, there's several videos on how the equipment works and the process as well. I think that that's the next level of what we need to be talking about.
Yeah, if somebody is really interested in this and goes to our site, there's a contact info. If they fill it out, then we'll contact them and send them everything they need to see.
Harvey, another question popped up of, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it, but can this affect inventory projection and management? Do you see this technology as playing a role in kind of how we think about our inventory?
Well, Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually getting on another webinar as soon as this one's over to talk about that exact topic. So when you have 10,000 employees, 15,000 employees, for example, in an airline, or 30,000 employees, you then are able to establish a size range, okay? And once you know who those people are and the different regions to which these clothes are worn, you're actually able to significantly reduce, in my opinion, the number of SKUs and sizes that you will need on your shelf for each item. I think that that's, in many cases, you're measuring the people and then making the clothes, but then you have to second guess what those measurements were, and inevitably they're wrong, right? Inevitably, you did not make enough extra small, or you ran out of size large, and now you got to go recoup. So by having all the data, right, all the body measurements, you can get pretty close to the amount of inventory that you're going to need to keep. And then, of course, that depends on the contract, your requirements you have. But there's no question that I think that you can probably cut, in my own estimation, and I'm only, this is a swag on my part, I think you can cut inventory about 20%.
Wow. Well, that's huge, actually. That's really huge, because yeah, we all have that bell curve, right, in the warehouse, and we all try to predict based on that bell curve. But like you're saying, that, you get exceptions, and especially if you're in multiple parts of the world with a program, and, multiple cultures, because body shapes just change as you travel around the planet, right?
The data can affect not just the inventory, it can affect all the way back to when you're designing the clothing, right? If you design it with a grading that it's pretty much linear, the way people design then do the grading. Well, the general population isn't linear in the body shape, right? So with enough data of your customer base and knowing their body shape, you can change, I can show you, for example, for this particular size, if you change the thigh for a little bit, you get 10% more of your population that fits in that waist range and this thigh, and so on. So the data actually is quite powerful.
Excellent.
Yeah, coming from the made to measure world, we had various patterns, and literally, especially more so in women's than in men, but we had it in men as well, where as the sizes grow, the measurements, or the flats, let's call it that, the patterns, did not change in a straight line. There were jumps and skips as you went up the size range. I think that that's absolutely true. And to Tuck's point, a minor adjustment to a pattern, and then you increase or decrease the amount of alteration required, or the amount of happy customers, right? So, and it doesn't take much. You'd be surprised sometimes on a man's pattern, it could be just 1/4 of an inch in the rise, or a 1/2 an inch in the seat. On a women's pattern, it could be a similar type of thing where, you need a little bit more thigh, but then fits a much wider range of people.
So I know Harvey's going to talk about inventory in a webcast you're doing next, right, Harvey? But in our trilogy, the next one is match, and then the one after that is manage expectation. We'll actually be talking about the inventory and the 2-point stack as well.
All right. Well, we promised 30-minute talks, so let's honor the time. And I was the one that came back and started forwarding some questions. So thank you both for your time today, and I look forward to the talks for the next 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Harvey and Rick. Thank you. And thank you for people attending.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.